Welcome to Life Science Marketing Radio, the podcast where marketing leaders inside and outside the sciences share their creative ideas and practical approaches to increasing your marketing ROI. Here's your host, Chris Connor.
Tiffany Payne is the founder of Veris Marketing. We were previously colleagues at Varian and Agilent, and we thought it'd be fun to talk about her recent transition to doing her own thing and what that journey has been like. Also, I'm going to say it right here so I don't forget. Like, if you're not following her on LinkedIn, she has written some amazing articles that you should definitely check out. So, Tiffany, welcome to Life Science Marketing Radio.
Thank you so much, Chris. I'm so happy to be here, and I just really appreciate you having me on.
It's my pleasure. This will be interesting. So, it's no secret because you've written it on LinkedIn that you recently left Agilent, but you went to the American Society of Mass Spectrometry, which is kind of the core event in the world we've been living in for a long time. Tell us about the moment you had when you attended the meeting and you go to get your badge and it has a big nun printed on your company's face.
Yeah, so I walked from my hotel into kind of the registration area and walked up with my QR code as I've done many times before. And it didn't occur to me beforehand that when my badge printed out for the conference, it would not print out just with a blank space from where my company would be. It actually filled in the word none in pretty large letters. I actually wrote an article about it, and I have a picture of the badge on there so that everyone could see for themselves. And in that moment, I had been laid off 2 weeks before that. I was in no way healed from that experience. However, it made me laugh out loud, because just the ridiculousness of that situation and the knowledge that here I was going to a conference thinking, I'm not here with any particular company. I'll just be kind of able to wander around as a participant and kind of, be in the background. And now I have a badge hanging around my neck that says none under company in huge font. So it was kind of a laugh to keep from crying situation. But the interesting thing that happened with that is that, it sort of forces you to think about who you are and how you show up and what you really value beyond your job. I think I did an exercise not long after my layoff where I listed out the values that I hold that are most important to me. And I also gave some thought to, if I asked my friends and family to make that same list, what would they write down about me? And, nowhere on that list was there anything about, creating a marketing plan or CAGRs or market segmentation or strategy or ROI or any of that. It was about kindness and generosity and honesty and a sense of humor, which I value above almost everything else. So I think it's important when you're forced into this situation where you no longer have an employer, you have to find other things to identify yourself by. And as I was walking to the conference to, register and have that experience, I passed someone on the street who was, asking for change, which I never, ever carry cash. I didn't have anything to offer. But as I got the bag at the registration table, I have so many of those bags sitting in the corner of my closet. You probably do too. I used to give them to my kids to take to school. I thought, I have this empty bag. I could put some food in here, give it to that person, and it gave me something else to kind of define myself by. I'm someone that helps people. I'm not, simply an unemployed person. So I think that's important to think about if you're in that situation.
Yeah, that's an awesome story. So good on you for that. And yeah, it was stunning. I saw the picture of your badge. None is written very large. it might be a new strategy because one of the things that annoys me about trade shows, in addition to giving away lots of crap, is how when you walk around the exhibit floor and vendors in their booth will look at your badge before they look you in the eye to see if you are worth having a conversation with. At least that's my feeling. Like, is this person important? Is that a lead? Right? And you're being
Or
evaluated.
are they a competitor?
What's that?
Or are they a competitor?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I didn't even think of that. But, and it's such a weird vibe about, you know, and it's kind of dystopian in a way, but I realize there's a point to it and you need to know who you're talking to. But yours became a conversation starter.
Yeah. I sort of decided to use it. It was hanging around my neck. It was no secret to anyone. So I started introducing myself as the CEO of None Industries, offering nothing to no one anywhere. And just kind of tried to use it as an icebreaker with people. What was funny about it is some people saw my badge and actually tried to ask me about, my company, None.
How do you pronounce that? Probably.
Yeah.
Right? Is that None?
I haven't heard of that one. What do you do? But then other people absolutely started opening up to me about their own experience being laid off. It was incredible the number of people I've spoken to who are very accomplished professionals. They are directors and senior directors or VPs or CEOs who have been laid off over the course of their career. Some of them once, but most of them have been laid off multiple times. It is just kind of the new normal, unfortunately, in the job market that we're swimming in right now. So I think that really helped remove any kind of shame or embarrassment that I may have had about it. And I just kind of leaned into it. I put myself out there. I had some great conversations and even some interviews at the conference. And I think it was a lesson in just putting yourself out there and see what happens. I mentioned that I wrote an article about it, and that article has sort of gone viral since then. And I told the story in that article about, putting food in the bag and offering it to the person on the street. And since then, in addition to having people reach out to me about their own stories about being laid off or, other sort of employment situations they're in, I've had people tell me about acts of kindness that they were inspired to do, whether it's buying groceries for the people in front of them at the grocery store or joining Meals on Wheels is one that I heard recently. And it's been so amazing and gratifying to see people kind of creating their own protective layer of armor in what is a very, a vulnerable situation of being a job seeker and making the best of their situation.
Yeah, it's very interesting that, first of all, most people relate to it, and if they can't relate to it, they certainly understand it from a fear perspective, like, oh my gosh, like, I wouldn't want to be in your shoes. And they also admire the courage it takes to just say, like, this is where I am, right?
Yeah.
And
and Chris, if I may, I think what might be worse than getting laid off is the fear of being laid off. Because I can tell you, with the uncertainty that exists in the job market right now, it's almost worse not knowing if it's coming. Because once it happens, you at least know your situation and you can deal with it. You can handle it. But that fear before it happens, in my experience, is a lot worse.
yeah, uncertainty is always the worst. I'm sure. I mean, read a lot of psychology books lately related to psychology and how once you're laid off, you're in control, and you really are in control regardless, but you don't feel it because you're kind of hoping that
Yeah.
you're hanging on, right? And so that's not quite in as control in your head as you'd like to be.
Hmm.
All right. So we're going to transition a little bit to marketing. We're going a lot of places in this conversation today. So, but this is interesting. Um, so you started your business. You've had to explain to people, family and friends around you, about what marketing is, because of course they all have, one-dimensional view of what marketing actually means. And
Right.
so, how do you define it?
Yeah, this came from a real conversation with my mother where I was talking to her about my new business. She was so happy for me and so excited for me, and let me know that she really had no idea what this business was or what it was offering to people. And it was funny to me just because it is what I've been doing professionally for 20 years. So come to find out, she never really knew what I was up to, I suppose. But then in recounting the story with kind of a broader audience later on, they didn't really understand what marketing was either. And a lot of people just think it's interchangeable with advertising. The marketing team makes flyers, makes brochures, makes commercials. That is marketing. And in my experience, it is so much broader than that. And any kind of negative connotation or stereotypes or misconceptions that people have about it are not true to my experience at all, because the way that I view marketing is that it's my responsibility to understand the needs of customers that are out there that need to buy products in order to solve a problem. And there are companies that you have to match with those customers. You're a matchmaker of sorts. It is not about convincing someone to buy something they don't need. That is not marketing. It is about feeding customer needs into a company so that the perfect product can be developed. And then once that's ready for market, you got to tell everyone about it. And you have to tell everyone why you developed it and why it's perfect for solving their problem. Um, I wrote an article about this too, and I think a lot of people think of marketers kind of like they do Mad Men, like they're up in these high rises, trying to come up with tricky slogans and things like that. The companies that I have worked for and worked with over the course of my career are companies that are doing really amazing things for the world. They are companies, yes, that are making analytical instruments that are driving scientific discoveries and new diagnostics and new therapeutics that are helping people in real ways. But in addition to that, I've been having conversations with companies that create technology that enables people who are nonverbal to communicate. I don't think that there's a higher calling than that. So I think that, you really have to consider marketing more broadly. And the brochure or the flyer that's at the end of the process is not the process. It is the very end point. But there's a lot of work and a lot of research and a lot of strategy that goes into it.
Yeah, that is well described as putting the brochure at the very end of a long process of work. It occurs to me, I want to ask, I'm trying to think about what your mother thought for the last 20 years and how, tell me if rings true or not, that her description, if someone had asked her, would be very much tied to Agilent and Varian as, oh, she sells chemical equipment or something like that,
Yeah.
and not really about what your day to day.
I have to imagine that that's the case. And, I've been in many Thanksgiving table conversations where I have to find a way to explain mass spectrometry in a way that's very succinct and, in a way that can apply to people's real lives. PFAS is a topic that's really popular right now. And I've done a lot of work understanding the origins of PFAS, testing for PFAS, For anyone who's listening to this who has an interest in it, there's a book called Exposure by Rob Bilott that I highly recommend. It will give you the whole origin story of PFAS. Um, but I think it's about matching storytelling with your profession. And it's about saying, when you drink your water, there are people testing it to ensure that there are certain things that aren't in there. And these are the instruments that allow that testing to take place, among other things. So you try to really match it with the human experience, I think is the trick.
Yeah. So many things that are invisible to the end consumer. I mean, now I'm just go down the list. Pesticides. Is your honey actually honey? All those things. I mean, I could go on, but yeah. And I'm not a mass spec person, even though I was in that world for a while. But when I think about the things that it could do, pretty mind blowing. Yeah. So talk a little bit about the example you shared with me previously about helping a lab find the story behind a faster drug test. What's your process and how to tell us about that?
Yeah, so I'm actually going to start by talking about the end point, and then I'll talk to you a little bit about where we started and how we got there. So imagine for a moment that you are the administrator of a child protective services testing program. And it is your responsibility to consider all of the analytical testing labs that are out on the market where you could send samples to have them tested for drugs of abuse, because it is your mission and your responsibility to ensure that children are in safe homes, and that their caretakers who may be recovering from substance abuse are drug-free. So in this scenario, there are many labs that could deliver those results, whether they be urine tests or blood tests, in somewhere around 2 to 4 weeks. But there's one lab to consider that through a finger prick blood test could deliver results in a few days. And I think all other things being equal in terms of, similar pricing, similar accuracy, all of those things, the choice is really obvious, because imagine the experience of a child who is in a home where someone is going to test positive for methamphetamines or opioids or any other number of drugs, and we don't know it for 4 weeks. That's a really long time to wait. So I think that story, that scenario, represents the end of a process which started with me talking to a customer about how they would like to really focus on judicial drug testing. And I didn't know exactly what that meant. It's a very broad sort of umbrella term. And that was the starting point. It took a lot of research, a lot of discussion, and going through sort of guided exercises to get to the point where we had a very focused strategy based on the target customer, how their success is measured, what's going to motivate them to choose your product over the other services on the market.
Yeah. You did fabulous storytelling, right? And what's the human element of this thing and the end result that we're looking for? And then how do you help this business focus on that segment of the market? What do they need to know? What do they need to know about their customers? Brilliant.
Yeah. Thank you.
Nice. So that's, in case anybody listening to this podcast had any doubts about what marketing is, now you know. All right. So you've also written some articles about companies that are choosing to be upstanders. And these are the companies that are continue to embrace DEI without mandates. So what makes an upstander in your eyes, and why are they important?
Yeah, the idea of upstanders actually came from a children's book that we used to read with our kids when they're very young. Just for context, my daughter just graduated high school and is off to college in the fall. Yes, very excited. Oregon State, go Beavers. Um, and my son is a sophomore in high school. So this was not recent. But the idea of an upstander is that when someone is getting teased at school or bullied or something, the upstander is the kid that will go in there and say, this isn't right. You need to stop doing this. It was in the context of, going to school and standing up for what was right. But I think that right now, there are so many companies who are challenged with standing behind some of their core values and beliefs because of what it may cost them in the market. I think that, there has been a lot of government funding that has been jeopardized by institutions, academic and government institutions that have DEI programs. And I was actually inspired to write this article because my daughter attended the Pride Parade in San Francisco in June, which is, Gay Pride Month. And she sent me a picture of a group of people marching behind a banner, and underneath it just said, "Yeah, Kaiser." And so that was Kaiser Permanente. So they are a great example of upstanders. They are out there supporting their employees, supporting their members, supporting their community who are LGBTQ+. And the thing that occurs to me is that when you go out and look, there are other large companies who have a lot at stake when it comes to putting their core beliefs front and center around inclusion and equity and diversity and all of these things, but they're doing it anyway. They are not changing their views based on what is fashionable, even if it costs them, financially. And I think what it brings to mind for me is that there's an opportunity here for large companies who are in the market to purchase products. Think about purchasing them from customers or from companies who share your values. It doesn't have to be the only deciding factor, but if we reward companies who are doing the right thing, I think that will make it easier or more popular for other people to follow suit.
Yeah, the whole concept of just doing the right thing. And what's most disturbing to me is, maybe you had a DEI policy or you didn't. Maybe you didn't have to have a policy but did the right thing anyway. But when you had one and then you drop it, what that says about what you really thought. And now, what am I going to think about you? It's like, oh, we only did that because we had to, or lots of pressure, or whatever. We didn't really mean all those things we said. Right. That's even worse to me than not having a policy at all. Like, I'm a liar.
Yeah, I feel the same way.
I disagree with you on this issue. I am an outright liar.
Yeah.
So,
and look, as a small business, I am a business of one person right now. I do not have as much at stake as these large companies do, but I look to them for inspiration to say, okay, well, if this turns into something for me and I'm lucky enough to have 25 employees someday, here's my DEI policy and it's not going to change. And so I just copied and pasted from all those companies I found. And I put my own statement together, just slapping those things together. I think that they deserve an immense amount of recognition.
Yeah. Just think about the kind of world you want to live in. And I can understand why some people have different feelings about it, but still the right thing to do just in general. Like, if you have daughters, you have friends who are LGBTQ or whatever, like, what do you want the world to be like?
Yeah. Well, and a lot of the reason that these companies had these policies in the first place is because it was beneficial to their bottom line. It makes for companies that are stronger, that have more innovation, that have better ideas because they're bringing people together with different experiences that have different ideas. So it doesn't have to be completely altruistic. If you want to have a really strong company for a really long time, bring together a lot of different people.
Yeah. I mean, it's just the math. Like, all the good ideas are in this segment. No.
Right.
Like, it just doesn't work that way.
Exactly.
Anyway, last question. Some people are thinking that they're advising job seekers to hide their identities. What advice do you have for those?
Yeah, I see more and more posts online, and I don't want to put all recruiters in this bucket because there are recruiters out there who are fantastic. But there are recruiters out there who are giving people tips and tricks for how to hide the fact that you're over 50, how to hide the fact that you're a woman, or how to hide the fact that you're not white on your resume, on your LinkedIn profile. And I think it's disgusting. I want no part of it. And I think that for the people who are under pressure to do those things, I think you have to really consider if doing this gets me a job at a particular company, is that a job that I want? Is that a company that I want to work for? If I have to hide myself in order to really be considered a strong candidate. And hopefully, a lot of people would consider that that's probably not the right place for them. And, just to expand on this topic a little bit further, there are alternatives out there to submitting hundreds of job applications. And I can say that because I started my own company a couple of months ago, and I have not been this happy in decades. I'm putting all of my energy into something that I'm building. And I feel like I'm part of the solution in this job market because if I build this into something where I can hire people, I can be the right kind of company, the right kind of leader, and create the right environment for, consider these new college grads. My kids will be among them in the next, 4 to 8 years. What job market are they coming into? I would love to have a place for them where they can be encouraged and grown and, their ideas can be nurtured. So I really feel like, look, you don't have to stop applying for jobs. Keep applying for jobs by all means. Even though I heard something yesterday that there are estimates that 70% of the jobs listed on LinkedIn are fake, but okay, fine, apply for those jobs. But while you're doing that, what if you form a company designing software and someone else forms a company that does PR and this person forms a company that does, website design, and we create this network of small businesses that rely on each other to deliver the same kinds of services that we were delivering to large corporations, but we can work with the clients we want to work with, and we can work with the contractors we want to work with. Imagine a company where you get to pick all of your coworkers. Like, that's the dream, right? Yeah. So this is my kind of call to action for people. There's a lot of people out there that are hurting and are struggling. Believe me, I've been through it. I have my own experiences along those lines. But I do think that there's an alternative. And I really encourage people to think about it. And if you're not sure about it, reach out to people and talk to them about it. Help them mold your ideas into something that could be advantageous for the market. And let's help each other.
I love the last thing you said there, like reach out to people and help them help or let them help you mold these ideas. Because we get, like Scott Galloway says, it's hard to read the label from inside the bottle. And you were probably discounting many of your skills and value, much of your value, doing it on your own. And you will come up with ideas talking to people like Tiffany or whoever your friends are, that might reveal something that's pretty exciting. And, and not to discount how hard it must be to be looking for a job right now. So there's that. But I like what I like about this whole conversation, Tiffany, is your vision for the world. So thank you so much for sharing all of that.
Thank you so much for having me, Chris. I really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. Hey, if you're still listening, that tells me you enjoyed the podcast. But don't tell me, tell your friends, and I'll be back soon with another episode. Okay, you can tell me too. Send an email, chris@lifesciencemarketingradio.com. Bye-bye.